Welcome to the Deep Dive, and a very happy 2026 to everyone.
Happy 2026. And we're kicking off the year with a really fascinating, almost bizarre situation in the travel world.
It's a true paradox. I mean,
Right.
right now we should be seeing the beginning of the Himalayan spring trekking season gearing up. Instead, there's just this silence. If you look at the travel data, Nepal is in the middle of a tourism slump that just doesn't seem to make any sense.
It's more than a slump. It feels like a vacuum. And it's almost like it's been manufactured. You have these perfect conditions, clear winter skies, the pre-monsoon warmth is just around the corner.
The best time to go, really.
The best time. And yet the places that are usually buzzing, I'm talking Thamel in Kathmandu, Lakeside in Pokhara, they're just quiet. Eerily quiet, almost like ghost towns.
And this silence has nothing to do with the weather. It's all political, it's bureaucratic, and it's created this huge economic headache for the entire country.
Yeah, a massive headache.
And that's exactly what we're focusing on today. We are doing a deep dive into an absolutely essential article from Nepal guidebook author David Ways. It's titled, "The 2026 Ghost Season, Why Nepal is Empty and How to Bag a Himalayan Deal."
And, David Ways lays out this incredibly compelling case. He calls it a perfect storm that has essentially cut off the main arteries of international tourism for, well, at least the first half of this year.
A perfect storm of what, exactly?
It's this confluence of things, strategic blunders by the tourism board, these political tremors from last year, and then just a critical failure in the global insurance system.
Okay, but here's the twist, and this is why we wanted to do this deep dive right now.
Right. This is the important part. Because this disaster for the tourism industry, it translates directly into a massive, maybe once-in-a-decade opportunity for, the savvy traveler, the informed traveler.
So our mission here is really twofold. First, we need to unpack the backstory.
Right.
We've got to understand why the mainstream tourists, the big tour groups, the five-star hotel crowd, why are they all staying home?
We have to get into the nuts and bolts of the structural failures.
Exactly. And then we pivot. We're going to get into the tactical plan. If seeing the Himalayas is on your bucket list, we're going to walk you through the exact steps David Ways lays out for how you can bag the deal.
And not just save a ton of money, but see the mountains without the crowds. Maybe experience a more genuine side of Nepal.
It's a deep dive into risk, miscalculation, and just pure opportunity. So let's start by looking back at what created this so-called ghost season.
Let's do it.
Okay, so to really unpack this, we can't start in 2026. We have to, like you said, rewind the clock a bit into the long shadow of late 2025. The immediate trigger, according to the source, was the September 2025 Gen Z protests.
Yeah, and we have to be really clear here. These were not, your routine political demonstrations.
Not just a change of government.
No, not at all. David Ways is very specific about this in his article. This was a new phenomenon for Nepal. We're talking massive, sustained, and overwhelmingly youth-led movements.
And what were they about? It wasn't just party politics.
No, they weren't fighting over which minister got which cabinet position. They were aimed squarely at something much deeper. Systemic, endemic corruption and the economic stagnation that the younger generation felt was just destroying their future.
They felt trapped.
Completely trapped in poverty with no way out. And because these protests were so big, so visible, and they got so much global news coverage, the political fallout was immediate.
The government fell.
The government fell, and interim leadership was appointed. And for the international community, regardless of the merits of the protest, that just signals one thing: instability. It's a giant red flag.
And that red flag points directly to the next big event on the calendar, which the whole tourism industry is just fixated on right now, the March 5th general election.
Right, the election.
Now, an election is a normal part of democracy. Nepal's had them before. Yeah. Historically, how has that usually affected tourism?
Historically, yeah, it causes a dip, but a predictable one. The data usually shows maybe a 15% drop.
Yeah.
And that's usually because people are worried about bans, those local general strikes, or just getting stuck somewhere. A trekker doesn't want to get stranded because the roads are shut down for a day or two.
Right. Simple logistics.
But 2026 is totally different. And it's because of that Gen Z factor from 2025.
It's the unpredictability.
It's all about unpredictability. The decentralized, youth-led nature of those protests introduced a level of volatility that the international travel industry, and maybe more importantly, the global media, they just translate that as danger.
They see the headline, country in flux,
Yeah.
post-protest instability.
And that becomes the story. And for the average premium vacationer, the person who values stability and safety above all else, That noise is the ultimate deal breaker. They just book somewhere else.
Which, this brings us to what David Weiss points to as a massive structural failure. It's the strategic pivot that the Nepal Tourism Board, the NTB, has been on for the last decade.
Yes, the high-value, low-impact
Explain
strategies.
that. What were they trying to do?
It's a classic debate in, basically every developing tourism economy. Do you go for volume, lots of people spending a little, or do you chase revenue per person?
And the NTB chose revenue.
They did. They, along with the big trekking agencies and the fancy resort owners, made a very conscious decision. They wanted the tourist who spends $500 a night on a boutique hotel, not the backpacker spending $20 a night in a local tea house.
You can see the short-term financial logic, I guess.
Mhm.
The high-value guest pays more, stays for a shorter time, and the profit margins are way higher.
That's the motivation.
Yeah.
But the article shows how this strategy just catastrophically backfired the moment it was tested by a little instability.
How do they implement it? How do you actually get rid of the budget traveler?
You make it too expensive and too difficult for them. They brought in policy changes like dramatically hiking the trekking permit fees, creating new taxes, and the big one was introducing mandatory guides for routes that used to be popular with independent trekkers.
Ah, okay. So you add hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars to the overhead of a trip that used to be affordable.
Exactly, and you do that to the traveler who is often the most resilient, the one who is most likely to stick around during a bit uncertainty.
So they actively drove away the demographic that would have weathered the storm
Right.
in favor of the luxury traveler who is, as you said, famously risk-averse. The first person to cancel a trip when they see a negative headline.
That's it in a nutshell. They chose the most fragile segment of the entire market. So when those headlines about the protests hit in September 2025, the NTB's entire target audience just pulled the plug instantly.
And the resilient backpackers who might have stayed.
They'd already been pushed towards cheaper places, other destinations in the region that hadn't priced them out of the market.
I mean, this just seems so incredibly short-sighted. Didn't this strategy basically make their entire tourism industry brittle? Totally reliant on the global news cycle staying positive?
That is the central argument in the source material. By designing the system for fragility, they guaranteed the maximum possible damage when the first political tremor hit.
And the numbers back this up.
Completely. 2025 only saw about 1.1 million tourists, which was way below their targets.
Yeah.
And David Weiss points out that these big promotional campaigns, like the China-Nepal Year of Tourism, they all just failed. Not because Nepal isn't an amazing destination, but because the whole strategy was built on a house of cards.
Which means that now, in early 2026, the industry is sitting on what the article calls a mountain of empty rooms.
It's not just a lack of new bookings, it's stranded infrastructure. You have guides with no work, lodges with no guests, all this invested capital just sitting idle.
And this leads to something darker that you touched on, this idea of a cannibalistic cycle. What happens when a slump like this drags on?
Well, who survives, right? It's not the small family-run lodge, it's not the independent guide, it's the big companies, the international hotel chains, the banks holding the loans. They can afford to wait it out.
They can buy up the smaller businesses for cheap.
Precisely. The source suggests that if this ghost season continues through the spring, we're going to see these small local businesses, the real fabric of Nepali tourism, get bought out and consolidated into huge monopolies.
Wow, that's a huge consequence. So the NTB's strategy, which failed, actually creates a vacuum that helps consolidate power.
Which, and here's the irony, feeds the exact problems of economic stagnation and oligarchy that the Gen Z kids were protesting in the first place.
The cycle just feeds itself.
It does. But, while the politics set the stage and the bad strategy made the industry vulnerable, the real killer, the technical thing stopping the average person from going right now, isn't actually fear. It's bureaucracy. It's the insurance deadlock.
Okay, this is where it gets really complex.
Yeah.
The global financial system just slams right into the logistics of adventure travel. The political fear only matters because of how insurance companies react to it.
That is the absolute key. After the protest got so much media attention, the major embassies, and these are the ones the big insurers listen to, the US, UK, China, Australia, they all issued heightened travel warnings.
Specifically about the upcoming election.
Exactly, citing the possibility of renewed civil unrest in the lead up to the March election.
And you called this a kill switch. Can you break down the mechanics of that? Why does an embassy warning just automatically void a normal insurance policy?
Yeah, you really have to dive into the fine print. Most standard off-the-shelf insurance policies, the kind you get with a credit card or as a cheap add-on for a flight, they have these exclusion clauses.
The fine print nobody reads.
The fine print nobody reads. And they're often triggered by what the policy calls a foreseeable risk. So when a government, like the U.S. State Department, raises its travel advisory to a high level, say level 3 reconsider travel, and specifically mentions civil unrest, that's the trigger. The policy is just voided instantly.
So if there's a level 3 warning out and you decide to go anyway, you are basically traveling financially naked. If you get altitude sickness at 13,000 feet, you're on the hook for a $30, $40, $50,000 helicopter evacuation bill.
That's exactly it. And
Yeah.
that level of financial exposure stops 99% of people in their tracks.
Yep.
The insurance deadlock is the technical, legal reason that bookings just fell off a cliff, completely separate from the actual on-the-ground risk.
But this got even worse because of this long-running problem in Nepal, the helicopter rescue scam. This came back to bite everyone.
Oh, yeah. The backstory here is so important. This scam has been a huge issue for almost a decade. It's this systemic problem where, some less than honest guides, trekking agencies, and helicopter companies all sort of collude.
To do what?
They encourage or sometimes even pressure trekkers to call for a helicopter evacuation for really minor things, sometimes even faked symptoms. They do it so the agency and the helicopter operator can collect these huge, often inflated commissions from the insurance payout.
So it's an incentive system that has nothing to do with actual medical need.
Nothing at all. It just drives up the risk and the cost for everyone. So now, you fast forward to September 2025, you have this political instability, and you have the wealthy, risk-averse travelers, the NTB's target audience, who all have premium insurance.
The political noise was the perfect excuse.
It was the perfect cover. The observation from David Weiss on this is pretty cynical, but you have to hear it. There was a huge surge in helicopter evacuations from places like Everest Base Camp and the Annapurna Circuit.
Okay.
But here's the detail. Many of these evacuations happen after the trekkers had already reached their goal, after they got to base camp, after they crossed the high pass.
Wait a minute. So they hike for 2 weeks to get to the main event, the highlight of the trip, and then they use the political headlines as a convenient excuse to not have to do the boring multi-day walk back down. That's the cynical interpretation from the source, yes. They cashed in their insurance chip to skip the hard part.
They get the photo for Instagram, then call for a chopper ride home. It was seen as a no-risk, high-convenience way to end the trip, paid for by their premium insurance. And the result for the insurers was an absolutely astronomical bill. You had this surge of claims related to perceived political risk layered right on top of the already existing scam problem.
So the insurance companies just said, that's it, we're out.
They're rational. They looked at the 2025 claims data, they saw the huge expense, and they realized the risk of covering Nepal during this period was just too high. So for 2026, many of them have just blacklisted Nepal entirely until after the election is over and things calm down.
So the high-end travelers cashed in their policies, they've moved on to their next stable destination, and now everyone else, the regular travelers, the budget folks, are paying the price.
We all are. We're all facing higher premiums because of it. And this creates what the article calls that ever-tightening spiral driven by algorithms of profit. High insurance costs stop the normal person, the teacher, the student, from even considering this trip.
They just go somewhere else.
They look at the total cost, see the insurance premium is as much as the flight, and they book a trip to Peru instead.
And this leads to that future that David Weiss predicts. A system that filters out everyone except the super wealthy, who don't care about high insurance costs, and maybe the most hardcore budget traveler who's willing to take the insane risk of going with no insurance at all.
Yeah, the middle ground just collapses, and you end up with a market where only millionaires and billionaires can realistically and safely visit Nepal. This whole system is what has created the ghost season, but it's also what's created this incredible opportunity we're about to talk about.
Okay, so we get it. We understand the deep structural reasons for this ghost season. The mainstream market is gone. We know why. So now let's pivot to the actionable advice. How can someone safely and affordably capitalize on this moment?
First things first, we absolutely have to tackle the safety question head on, because this is where the international media has really paralyzed people with fear.
Right. The source, David Weiss, is very clear. He asserts that Nepal is generally safe. But let's get specific. What was the reality on the ground during those 2025 protests?
The source is really emphatic about this. The media hype was just way over the top. Yes, the protests were visible, but they were almost exclusively focused on government buildings in the big cities, mainly Kathmandu.
Not out on the trekking trail.
Exactly. And crucially, tourists were never targets. They were welcomed. They were not harmed.
So when someone in, say, the United States sees a shaky cam video of a crowd in Kathmandu, they're picturing that same scene at Everest Base Camp hundreds of miles away. That's the exaggeration.
That's the exaggeration, 100%. The trekking regions are remote. They are not where political demonstrations happen. The article is really critical of these clickbait Instagram stories that basically equate a protest in one square of the capital with a nationwide crisis.
And the reality was just...
The reality outside those protest zones was calm. Tourist services kept running, and there were zero, let me repeat that, zero verified reports of tourists being targeted or harmed by the unrest.
Okay. So that's the green light. If the risk is overblown and the crowds are gone, why is right now, January through April, the absolute best time to go?
Because you are walking into what is an extreme buyer's market, and that gives you three huge interconnected advantages.
Let's start with the first one, the obvious one, massive discounts.
Occupancy rates in hotels and lodges are at rock bottom. We're talking single-digit percentages in some places. That gives you, the traveler, immense leverage. You should be going in expecting prices to be at least 15 to 20% cheaper than normal.
And that's across the board.
Across the board. Your hotel in Kathmandu, but also those really expensive all-inclusive trekking packages to Everest. This is the time to ask for a better room, to negotiate a better deal. Your money goes so much further.
Okay, advantage two, the experiential one, the private Himalayas.
This is the priceless part. I mean, this is your chance to reclaim the experience.
Yeah.
You can see Everest Base Camp. You can cross a pass like the Wrong Law with just a handful of other people around.
Not the long queues we used to see pre-pandemic.
All of that is gone. The over-tourism, the packed, noisy lodges, it has vanished. It's a chance to see the mountains in genuine silence, the way they were decades ago.
And the third advantage, the personal one, better service.
Yeah, this is so important. When you're not just one of 1,000 people rushing through, you stop being a transaction. You become a valued guest. Your guide has more time for you. The lodge owner wants to sit and talk.
They're happy to see you.
They're genuinely delighted to have your business. And that translates into this deeper, more authentic hospitality. David Weiss calls it the best of Nepal, and I think he's right.
This all sounds incredible, but we have to be practical. To grab this opportunity, you have to get past the hurdles that stopped everyone else. So let's break down the 4 tactical steps to actually bag a deal.
All right, let's do it.
Step 1, solve the insurance puzzle.
This is the big one. It's the technical kill switch, so you have to get this right. It is absolutely non-negotiable for safe travel. And the huge warning from the source is, do not rely on your credit card insurance.
Assume it won't work.
Assume it will fail you because of those civil unrest clauses.
So what's the specific action you need to take?
You have to find a specialized high-altitude trekking insurance provider. There are companies out there that specialize in this kind of high-risk adventure travel. Their policies are more sophisticated.
And they might actually cover you even with the government warnings in place.
They might, but you have to do the work. You have to read every single line of the fine print. And more than that, you need to call them.
And ask them what specifically?
You need to get it from them, preferably in writing, in an email, that the policy remains valid despite the current Level 3 or Level 4 travel advisory from your home country, and that it explicitly covers high-altitude helicopter evacuation even with a civil unrest clause. If they give you a vague answer, hang up and call the next company. You need ironclad certainty on this.
Okay, that's clear. Step 2, negotiate at the source. This seems to be about changing your booking habits.
It's a total mindset shift. Avoid the giant international booking websites. Those platforms run on fixed prices and algorithms. You have zero leverage there. Your advantage in the ghost season is the desperation of the local operator on the ground.
So the move is to book directly, in person, in Tamil or Pokhara.
In person is best.
Yeah.
Or through a direct personal email where you are very clear. State that you know the market is slow and you're looking for a 2026 special rate. Don't just accept the first price they give you.
Shop around.
Walk into 3 different trekking agencies. Tell them your budget. They are so motivated to fill their empty calendars, you can negotiate everything. And you're putting money directly into the local economy, not into the pocket of a huge multinational booking company.
What can be negotiated, like guide fees?
Everything. Guide fees, porter rates, the price of your room in the lodges, even internal flights to places like Lukla. If a hotel room is normally $100, you should be trying to get it for $75, maybe even $65. A big trekking package that was $1,800 last year. You should be aiming for $1,400 this year. Use your leverage.
Got it. Step 3. Time your window.
Right. The timing is critical. This opportunity won't last forever. The sweet spot, the window for maximum discounts and minimum crowds is right now, January, February, March, and April.
And after that?
After that, assuming the election goes smoothly and the political noise dies down, the big tour groups will start coming back, and the prices will normalize very, very quickly.
Let's talk about the election again. March 5th. Should people just avoid that week entirely?
The source says not to worry about it. March 5th will be a public holiday. The locals will be focused on voting. For a tourist, the day itself will probably be, and I'm quoting, immensely boring.
So not dangerous, just dull.
Exactly. Some things might close for a day, but they'll reopen. The risk of any real disruption to your trek is tiny, and the benefit of being there during this quiet period is huge.
Okay, final step. Step 4. Check local news.
This is about bypassing the hype. If the international media is all about alarmism, you need to find the truth on the ground.
So what's the action item?
Follow the local English-language news outlets in Nepal. Sources like the Kathmandu Post or online Khabar, they'll give you a much more realistic day-to-day picture of what's actually happening. And you'll see it's almost always far calmer than the international crisis reporting would have you believe.
You need facts, not fear.
Exactly. And David Wei's own site is another one of those trusted local sources. It's been updated this month, so the information is current, which is just essential right now.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize all of this. This ghost season of 2026. It's not a natural disaster. It's a man-made event. It's a crisis of bad strategy and, frankly, greed.
It is. It's the direct result of the tourism board chasing a fragile luxury market, which then collided with the reality of Nepali politics, and it was all amplified by these opportunistic insurance claims.
But the mountains are still there.
The mountains are unchanged. The people are as resilient and welcoming as they've ever been. And for just a few more months, the Himalayas are truly open for the savvy traveler who is willing to do a little bit of homework.
The person willing to solve that insurance puzzle.
That's the main hurdle. If you can solve that, you unlock this incredible, private, personal experience in one of the most beautiful places on Earth.
Let's leave our listener with one final provocative thought. It sort of ties this whole story together, from the protests to the potential for monopolies. We talk about how the Gen Z protests were about corruption and economic stagnation. So the question we should leave people with is this.
What responsibility do we as travelers have in shaping Nepal's future economy?
Exactly. Does the high-value tourist, whose fear and reliance on expensive helicopter evacuations feeds the insurance and aviation monopolies, does that person inadvertently reinforce the very systems the young people were protesting against?
Or, on the other hand, does the resilient independent traveler, the one who spends less per day but stays longer, who engages with small local businesses, do they offer a more sustainable, more stabilizing force for the country?
When you decide where and how to spend your money in Nepal this year, you're not just buying a vacation, you're casting a vote for the kind of tourism system you want to support.
One of centralization and big monopolies, or one of local resilience. It's a powerful thing to think about.
It is. And if you were planning that trip, or you just want the most accurate, on-the-ground information, we can't recommend David Wei's resources enough.
Yeah, check out the Longest Way Home Nepal travel website and his guidebooks.
And the critical thing is that we know all of his material has been updated this month, January 2026, to reflect the very specific reality of this ghost season.
That up-to-the-minute information is absolutely invaluable right now. You can't rely on old information.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, stay informed and maybe enjoy the silence.